on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
When I was doing PRSM, the second firm, we did all national retail, Gap, Eddie Bauer. But, you never saw your projects. You were dealing with the corporation. So in 96, when I decided I wanted to start Krittenbrink Architecture, I had three goals in mind. One was to work with people, not corporations. One was to see my projects being built. And third was to work with projects that make a difference. And we firmly believe that when we're creating the living environment for sororities that are, projecting the leaders of tomorrow, that is architecture with purpose.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Welcome back, friends. Today, we are going to talk about housing and specifically architecture with a guest who has designed more Greek homes than most of us have monogram tees. Welcome, Mark Krittenbrink from Krittenbrink Architecture. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Liz. How about yourself?
I am great. I'm excited to have you on the show and talk about all things architecture.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yes. So, for those who aren't familiar with you and your work, let's just start from the beginning. Y'all are based in Oklahoma. You specialize in Greek housing. I believe you also do some work on historical properties. Is that right?
We do. My history was I was with Krittenbrink McCoy, and we did a lot of schoolwork and historic houses on the historic register. And then I was with PRSM, and we did a lot of national retail work. And so both of those have set me up well for my current profession, which is Greek housing, sorority housing, because I learned from doing the retail Gap, Eddie Bauer, whatnot, that I can be, and we were all over the country in North and Canada. So I learned that I can be here and do work at distant sites and not have it suffer. Mm-hmm. And then working with the historic component, taught me how to stay within the architectural vernacular of a house. When you're adding on a good addition onto an existing house should look like it was always there. So, So yeah, that's the background.
That's very true. I'm glad you explained how the retail translated over for you, because I was going to ask that question. But you're so right. Doing the remote work is very much how both of our businesses run. And so it's nice to know that it's possible to do it and do it well.
And didn't you find that all changed with COVID? Because there are certain aspects of, it's like, I've got to present the design in person, or I've got to do the programming session in person. And nobody was doing anything in person during COVID. So thank God we had the technology that could, get us through COVID. And now I find, I can't present the design on screen. And I can't, things that I never thought, I'm an in-person FaceTime kind of guy.
Yeah.
Having the opportunity to figure out, I can do that, and it's just as successful. I think it's made it easier for everybody, certainly for building committees that are never located in one location.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I fully agree. I've enjoyed the technology and the tools that have come out of 2020 and the ways that it makes operating easier. Like, yes, I was doing remote work pre-2020, but you're right. It's gotten so much easier. And like you're talking about with those building committees, it's a lot of volunteers. They have day jobs. It's, it's very challenging to get everybody together. And so
I also think it's interesting dealing with some of those building committees because you have people that don't necessarily have the expertise in navigating those sorts of things. So that makes for some interesting moments. I always say it's like watching the Brady Bunch. You got all these little squares of pictures on the screen that you're dealing with.
Yep.
There's a story. But anyway.
There's the first song. I'm curious how many songs we're going to get. Folks, if you don't know Mark, he sings all the time. And so I was hoping we'd be lucky enough to get a song or two today.
We already missed this Oklahoma State song, so I'm one behind. I'm one down going in.
Well, you're forgiven. We'll see how the rest of this goes then.
Oh, awesome.
So, Mark, when you first walk into an old sorority house, are there any sort of architectural gems that catch your attention that you're like, okay, we've got to make sure we preserve this? And how do you go about doing that while still updating a facility?
Well, I think, first of all, it starts from the outside of the house. I always think, your curb appeal, what do you want to see? When I take people through the process, what do you want to see when you walk up to the front of the house? And when you open up the door, you have that one opportunity for a wow factor, rolling socks up and down. So what I look for is an opportunity to create a really strong presence in that first impression, and what components are there that we'll want to maintain. It's important to alumni. You don't want to lose certain things that are iconic to the alumni.
Right.
And yet you don't want to maintain something that doesn't work. So I look for the overall architecture. I think walking into a one-story foyer is always kind of underwhelming, no matter how nice the house is. So I always look for that grandeur, that snapshot. Walking through a house is a series of snapshots. Here's what I'm seeing when I walk in the front door. Oh, look, I'm looking into the dining room. There's a snapshot. So I think it's that. I look for things that are iconic to the sorority, that are well done, and then things that I can enhance or improve upon.
Yeah, I like that. The snapshot, it's giving Instagrammable moments, right? All the TikToks, all the Instagram side of things. And you're so right. It's all about kind of that point of view and that shot and how that could be portrayed when somebody's walking in for the first time.
I will say, to piggyback on that, one of the things that I try to encourage, it's nice to see who the donors were, the alumni were, that contributed to a housing project. And that's not a plaque, and that's not something hanging on the wall, because those things tend to get lost, but more of a permanent feature. And I think tying that in as well would be some graphics, some crest. I mean, I think when you walk into a foyer, I should know I'm in a Chi Omega foyer. I know that because of the crest, the colors, the tone. I think there's a branding component that you want, and I know you do this as well, that you want to introduce into each house so you're knowledgeable about where you are.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a certain amount of identity that needs to come out in those color palettes and emblems that you're talking about. And that's the fun part, is because every house is different. And so it's somewhat of a challenge to figure out how to incorporate those things. But the more creative we can be, I think the more fun the job is.
I think so too. And I think there could be a standard on what that's presented like, and then you envelop it within the vernacular of the area. Clearly, from your point of view, you're going to be doing something in Seattle that will be much different than Miami. That would be much different than New Hampshire. So I'm not expecting cookie cutter or carbon copy, but I think some components that carry through all of those.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So kind of switching gears and thinking more about security and safety. Like, we obviously want it to be aesthetically pleasing. That's, where we really shine. But what about the security side of things? Like, do you have any go-to strategies for making sure that these houses are both welcoming, but they also are kind of meeting some safety standards?
I think that's good design. Typically, you want to avoid dark corners. I think outside, the more the security is outside, getting in. What's your keypad system? What's your system? How do people get in? How can they not share that? I think from a security, I think cameras in the hallways and some public areas. So I especially recommend that in fraternities. So if something goes on, it's like, no, this is what really happened.
Yeah.
And then I think lighting on the outside, parking, if you have parking, needs to be well lit. The entries the whole site needs to be well lit. So that if I'm getting out of a car and walking up to the back door, or I'm being dropped off and walking up to the front door, I feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Pathfinding is obvious. I'm not being asked to walk back through the alley to get in. And whatever way I am getting in, it's well lit.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. I mean, just as a female, the safety component is always, on my mind.
Well, I think you have a room, so you have 4 sets of French doors, right? I don't want all 4 of those to be operable. Some of those need to be fixed. And the one that's designated that you can come and go, there is hardware, there's security measures on that. So even anybody just walking through their house and living don't have to worry about, that door was left unlocked, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. Do you have a favorite type of entry system from an architectural standpoint? Because they're not all cute, and some of them are somewhat distracting from the aesthetic of the building. Is there one that you think?
You mean like a front entry element?
Yeah, is it keys? Is it, keypad, that kind of stuff? Anything that you have a favorite when you use them?
It's keypads. I don't think anybody does keys. You have your code. That's good because you can change it. Oh, it was breached. Everybody gets a new code.
Yeah.
Or one is key to your name. But I think that works the best. Keys get lost and people prop doors open because they can't find their key.
Right.
And so I think a keypad system always works the best. Sometimes a fob, but I typically see keypads are being easier because, again, with a fob, you have to have that on hand.
Yeah, it could get lost just the same as a key. So the functionality is different.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody can get in.
On to more fun things. With the projects that you've worked on, knowing that some of them are older, have you uncovered anything that's been like really cool or creepy or anything when you've gone into scope out a project?
There's always creepy involved, right? The creepiest thing was when I was in a house and they had fire escapes for exit ways, and the hallways leading to the fire escape were filled with furniture. So that's not only creepy, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
But no, I find in older houses, I pull down a grid ceiling. It's like, oh my God, look, they have this coffered ceiling up here, or this beam ceiling, and they put in the grid to HVAC system or put in a sprinkling system. Nothing takes a residential component, especially a sorority component, down quicker than a grid ceiling. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think you have a big chapter room. You can certainly see a high ceiling 2x2 grid acoustically, because that's where in that room, honestly, I think it's going to be multi-purpose anymore, given the site restraints and financial restraints. So, I see that as a chapter room, as a multi-purpose room, as a study room. But yeah, look, and I think those key elements, we did a project in Purdue, and they have this big fireplace that everybody loves, and they have this little neon thing above it, which I hate it. But when we did it, oh no, you got to put the neon thing back. And we did.
Like a neon sign or what?
Yeah, a neon sign that was an emblem, but it was neon, and it was a curious thing. It was almost like you wanted, but it was fun. And I think you find those elements. Usually it's like, God, this is a really nice trim package. The wood trim here is really nice. Or, wow, check out that parquet floor or ceilings. And I think finding things that have been covered up because, it was easy. So it's easy to put in a grid ceiling because you cover everything, and anybody can recommend that. Nobody's weighing in on the design component. But I think you uncover things, especially when you get down into lower areas or upper levels. We were doing a house, and there's this room that was used for storage, and open it up. It's like, oh my God, this is an awesome room. And it has a big window that has been blocked over. And it was a perfect size for like an alumni meeting room, a big conference table. PowerPoint presentations. And it was just something that had been completely lost over the course of time. And I know my world is like your world. I come in, my job is to see things differently from what you've always seen them. Mm-hmm. I know you see this as a storage room, but look what it can be. Mm-hmm. And I think going in with a different set of eyes is probably what you and I bring to the table, seeing things from differently than how they've always been seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. When you were talking about the multi-purpose spaces, that conversation is coming up more and more, right? It's not every room has a different use. There's a lot of that multi-purpose, and it can be somewhat challenging to give it some personality and make it an inspiring space because they can be so vast because they're holding so many folks. So what are some things that you try to pull in? Forgive Bartlett, my office mate. He's a little fired up today and likes to join the podcast.
That's okay.
So what are some components architecturally that you add to these spaces that give them some personality and more oomph than just a basic oversized room to put 400 members in?
Well, I think when you're looking at renovation, you're looking at houses that were built to house 40 women and they have 150 in their chapter. So they don't have a big meeting space. They can't all come together for a chapter.
Right.
It's only slightly acceptable that you can do it in your dining room because you have to get rid of the food. And the ideal situation is, get up from meal, go down to chapter, right? And even in a new house, do you want a room that's only used once a week? A big room, one of your bigger rooms? Do you want
it wasteful.
Used once a week? It doesn't seem like the right purpose. And I also think the secrecy of chapter, sorority, and whatnot is a little bit less stringent than it used to be. But what I look for in those situations is if there's going to be a basement room, that's the perfect room. I look for a big room that's acoustically addressed, whether that be with materials or grid ceiling or sound soak, what have you. High ceilings so that it can accommodate, let's say there's a campus program and you have rehearsals, right? You need a big room that you can put people on top of your head and do the choreography and whatnot. So I think that multi-purpose room needs to encompass chapter. It can encompass study hall. It can encompass some kind of rehearsal space. And when I see that with chapter, it's obviously you're not going to have it dressed up as chapter, but there's a ritual storage closet room, if you will, right off of that room. You back up the track doors, you pull out the banners and whatnot. Now it's a chapter room. You finish up with chapter, you can put all that back into the ritual closet, lock it up. And so you still maintain that secrecy, if you will. I always do like a bench all around the room if I can. It's a great opportunity for chapter just to pile people up. A lot of people in there have been sitting on the floor and whatnot. Also, then as a study hall, you can have little bistro tables that you can pull up, right? That are floating, that are easy to maneuver. So you've got this bench and you can pull up a bistro table. And so you can study there, or you and a friend can group study there. And then the big space, a high ceiling, so rehearsal space and whatnot. And then for any event that you want to have down there, I think egress and getting in and out of this space needs to be easy.
Yeah.
And ideally, you can get into it with an entrance that doesn't allow you access to the rest of the house. You're having a rehearsal down there and a fraternity is coming over. You want them to come into the basement or into that room, do their thing, have a bathroom if they need it, and they leave. They don't walk through the house. So you have that. That's an additional security component, I think, that we do in fraternities and sororities, but I think it's really significant for sororities. Good lighting, good materials. It's not going to be, to me, it's a function. It's a room of function. So there's colors, there's graphics, there's murals, all that can happen. But I don't see, I'm probably going to do LVT or a polished concrete. I'm probably going to do, if it's in the base, a rubber base, some pretty base materials because it's going to get beat up. Does it make sense?
Yeah, those are all very good points and things that I don't know or that everyone always knows to think about when they're embarking on a project. So
how do you address the interiors of a room like that? I know I've listened to other podcasts and you've spoken to that. So I know you have had to address that from an interior viewpoint. How have you addressed those?
Well, the interviewee becomes the interviewer. I would say, just like you said, the lighting component, I think it's nice to add wall sconces or to make the overhead lights decorative fixtures to give it a little bit of personality. I think you're right on the LVP or the type of flooring. And so there's a chance to kind of warm it up or give it some personality and color in that way. I love the bench concept that you talked about because they could be banquettes, like fabric or vinyl covered banquettes. So they're very comfortable. They offer sound absorption and you can have a lot of fun with that. And I feel like that's a concept that is growing more and more. I'm having more groups ask for built-in seating.
Yeah, and you could also see some of that could have storage underneath, pop-up seats.
Yeah, totally. And then, if there's windows, I always try to throw in window treatments too in the multi-purpose space, just again for sound absorption and adding some pattern and color and just softening it a little bit.
No, and you do nice window treatments, so I can see that being a benefit.
Thank you. Yes, I love a good window treatment. But it all depends. If it's a men's facility versus women's, is it in the basement like you said or first floor? So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think we've talked a lot about kind of just some go-to tools in our arsenal that make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so too.
Did I hear correctly that the Fiji House at OU that you did was named Best Fraternity House in the Midwest?
It was in Campus Magazine.
Oh, that's very exciting. Talk about it.
It was exciting. Well, you know what? So how I got my start, my daughter was a Pi-Phi at OU and I get this call. Hey, we want to create a senior wing. Are you interested? It's like, well, hell yeah. And honestly, at that time, if I'd been asked to interview, I probably wouldn't have gotten the job. So it was a real perk that I did. And we tore off the lid to the chapter room and added 2 floors above. And it was a summer project. They never closed down. And I was very proud of the project. And then did another project, a meeting hall for Kappa, and then had the opportunity for the Fiji House. It was a big job. And it was my first big new job fraternity. So it was significant to me.
Yeah.
And they had a nice budget and they had a building committee that had a great vision. And so it's an awesome house. And it has, when I show people, it's like, so here's the library and here's a heritage room. And it's like, they wanted it to look like a country club. And it does. And they said, well, the men would just destroy that. It's like, no, because you have to give the men a place to play. And so there's also a big social lounge, right? And a room with pool tables and foosball tables and such. And not so much for women. Well, for men, you have to give them a place to play so the public areas remain nicer. Yeah. But it was just a great opportunity, great house, U-shaped, great backyard. They maxed out the landscaping at the at the ribbon cutting, the OU marching band came out the front doors, right?
Oh, wow.
And that was where I didn't get to go up to the chapter room for the last month because it was all very, very secretive. Secret spy decoder ring, right? I didn't have one. But it was a great project. It really was. It was an awesome project. And then I thought I'm a one campus wonder. So then I got a job at Oklahoma State. So it's like now I'm a one state wonder. And then I sold my soul to the devil to get a job at the University of Washington, which was tight and fraught, but we made it. And that just kind of springboarded to everything else. It's a great industry to be involved in. When I was getting when I was doing PRSM, the second firm, we did all national retail, Gap, Eddie Bauer. But, you never saw your projects. You were dealing with the corporation. So in 96, when I decided I wanted to start Krittenbrink Architecture, I had 3 goals in mind. One was to work with people, not corporations.
Yeah.
One was to see my projects being built, as opposed to we're not sending you out there to see this new Gap store. And third was to work with projects that make a difference.
Yeah.
And we firmly believe that when we're creating the living environment for sororities that are, projecting the leaders of tomorrow, that is architecture with purpose. And that is something we can contribute. And it's an investment we make and we love it. We love working with sororities, just knowing the difference you're creating, because we do what we do, we know what's going to make a good living environment. What's going to make a good living environment. We know the ins and outs of the industry. So you're not going to, make those mistakes. And you're also going to be looking long term. So that was a great project, but they're all great projects. That one did get an award though. So we like that. We like that.
It's always nice when you can have a little feather in your cap for something. You feel like it's appreciated.
I know. And if you know me, it's all about me. Let's not lose our focus, right?
Yes. Okay, so you said 2 things in that story that I want to go back to. The first was you said that Fiji's board had a great vision for the project. And so from your perspective, what constitutes a great vision? Because we have a lot of folks on House Core boards that listen to this. And so I think it's great to give them an idea of what success looks like when they do something. Okay,
fair. So when I go on site, usually the question is, shall we renovate or shall we add on or shall we build new, right? But the Fiji House, you couldn't get a backhoe there soon enough. It was just rough. So they knew they wanted to build a new house. And one of the things I encourage in any building committee is to include some active membership.
Yes,
right?
Agreed.
Because they're the ones living there. They're the ones that know how they compete on campus. I was doing a project and one of the alums said, well, we ought to fix up that basement and make it a lounge. That's where I wooed Mary, right? And nobody was wooing anybody down there anymore because it was storage. But, okay, you know what? That's an idea. Let's make it a movie room. It's a low ceiling. We'll get some comfortable rooms in there, just make it very comfortable. But so I think having a building committee that represents different decades of membership, but always having active membership so they can tell you, yeah, we don't need to work out a gym because we go to the university health club, which is always so much better than any individual group is going to come up with. And they just had a vision for what they wanted. They wanted social rooms. They wanted a house director. They wanted food service. They wanted a large dining room, which is where they have chapter, interestingly. They wanted a large social lounge. We have social spaces upstairs, which I think is good for brotherhood, sisterhood, that there are places to come together upstairs that are common area for everyone. They had a good design theme. They had a great site. It's a block, so it had a great site. And just the vision of what they wanted and then the money to back that up. So that's what made for a great project and built great building committee. And they were open to ideas. What we ultimately presented was far different than what I think they originally thought they would get. But it worked out really well for them. And so I think that's a lot of it, just having a committee built of different decades and certainly active member attention, if you will.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. They're probably going to think, listeners are going to think I paid you to say getting active members involved, because I'm always saying that to clients. I'm saying that on the show. Like, you gotta get that buy-in, right? Because that's who this design is for, is the current members. Alums bring a certain perspective, but you're designing for the folks today. Well,
Liz, I had this experience. I was at a house at University of Illinois, and so I'm presenting. Here's what we're going to do, right? And this is before we've done anything. And they were probably like 12 active men that came down, and then the alumni board came down, and I said, this is a long-term project. None of you are going to be living here when this happens. What's something that we can do for you right now? What is something that we can do this summer that makes this experience better for you? I asked that to 3 groups. Within 8 months, all 3 of them said, we want a food service on site.
Oh, wow.
Significantly so. And this group actually had food being dropped off at noon, and then you pick it up at dinner, and then dinner would be dropped off, and you pick it up at lunch the next day when lunch came back in. And you're thinking food sitting out for about 18 hours is a little horrifying. But they want a food service. And that's something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. The active, and I also told them we could get them, they had a great house. And I said, we can paint, we can polish the terrazzo, and we can get you some furniture that's not made of plywood.
Yeah.
But just getting their investment and knowledge of what's going on. They're the ones that are going to say, we don't need a workout facility, or, everybody else has this room, which we don't have. It would really be nice to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. No, I think that's great. I really like that, the what can we do for you now, because a lot of the folks involved won't be around down the road, active members. So that's very insightful. The second thing I was going to ask you from an earlier answer was you were talking about connecting with boards, and, you are known for building long-term relationships with folks within this industry. And so what's your secret for connecting with these chapters or boards and keeping them enthusiastic through the whole project? Because we know it can get daunting at times.
It can. I try to respect every board member's opinion. I had a project that I've been told on the site, it's a new build, but this one think we ought to renovate. And it's like, okay, so I'm not going to shut that down, because if I'm presenting a project and I'm not considering all views of the board, I'm not going to get the support of the board. So we did. I said, well, let's start out with renovation, and we did that. And it's like, okay, yes, this works, but you know what? You're not getting that big foyer. All of your big rooms, which aren't that big, only have an 8.5-foot ceiling, and so you could just walk them through. This is what we're doing, and it works. But probably for a smaller house, you're going to get all the things you need to compete in today's world on this campus. And so then I did a new build plan for them. And usually I don't do both, but I wanted to invest in it because everybody on this board was awesome. And always these boards are awesome. They're full of committed women, intelligent women that are giving their time to create something, not for them, because they don't live there anymore, but I mean, they're so dedicated to their chapter, to the young women that are living there. So I never run into any board member that isn't awesome, but I felt like I owe them the courtesy to show what a renovation looks like. And okay, now let's see what new construction looks like, and we'll walk you through it. And when you do that, they all go, oh, no, I get that. I get that. And so it's an easy way to take them all along for the ride. And then when questions come up, it's like, well, I thought we were going to do a renovation. Oh, we looked at that and it just wasn't going to work out because we had limited ceiling size and so on and so forth. So then I think you've armed the board with information that'll be helpful for them in discussing the project moving forward.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I kind of describe it as like giving them the why behind the what instead of just shutting them down. You do need to listen to them. And like you probably, like me, feel that you often need a psychology degree or something, because you're trying to be diplomatic. You're trying to field a lot of opinions. But I always say, like, I'd rather hear them all so I can speak to them, just like you said. Here's what that would look like, or here's why that doesn't work as well as this option. And then everyone's like, oh, okay, great. You're giving them information, which I think is powerful in this type of setting.
I think so. And you have to be careful not to pigeonhole yourself. Oh, you just want to do a new build. It's like, no. Honestly, probably my more favorite projects have been renovations with additions, because you're taking something that doesn't work and you make it awesome. Yeah. And so those are fun projects when the existing building allows itself to be, reimagined.
Yes, totally. There's a purpose for both new construction and renovation. I fully agree.
Absolutely.
All right. Last question. If budget was no issue, what are 2 things that you would always recommend to make the ultimate sorority house?
Budget's no issue. I'd probably put a hierarchy of rooms to encourage older classmen to stay in. So what does that look like? A leadership wing. No seniors stay in anymore, so it's a leadership wing. And what does that look like? Is that suites where you have bathrooms, right? Where you have an individual bathroom. We designed a house at SMU. Well, two things. I designed a house at OU, and it was 2 bedrooms that shared a bathroom. They had a common area up front.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was a fraternity, and let me tell you that a bathroom that doesn't get cleaned for 1 year never comes back, right? And so we're doing one at SMU, and it's the same thing. 2 bedrooms share a bathroom, but the bathroom is along the corridor with the door. So the housekeeping crew can come in and clean that bathroom.
Oh.
But I think just the autonomy. Also, I think, I know men want single beds. I think women do too, probably less so than men. But, just creating a higher end of living within the house. They still get, food service. They still get all the benefits of living in the house, but they maybe have a single room with its own bathroom, or 2 rooms that are adjoined by a bathroom, or a suite that has a common area. There's 4 bedrooms around that, and they share a bathroom, a small kitchenette, something to give them not the traditional sorority experience, not the living out of the house experience, someplace in between.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid of apartment living, but still with the community of Greek life and that food service and cleaning staff and so on for them.
I think so. And then, of course, nice group bathrooms if they're group bathrooms, and they need to be really nice, boutique, nice finishes. I think it's nice because think about how many women get up in the morning, they wash their face, they put on a cap, they're off to class, right? Do they need a whole bathroom for that? No. So I think we've done several things. I know it's just a makeup bar, and it's just a counter with mirrors and lights, and it's fussy like a powder room, but it relieves the strain on the bathrooms at key points of the day. And it's something women really enjoy, especially I still think when women are getting ready for a party, they will all get together, right? And get together. And so having that opportunity for them, and then just the day-to-day opportunity. The other thing I would always encourage is a nice, large, sunny room that they can be part of. We've got, you're going to have the main rooms, but if I'm looking at public spaces, then if I can do a little bistros upstairs, little refrigerator, microwave, that sort of thing, coffee bar upstairs, I think those are nice elements to plug in. Look at private sector and look what they're providing. And I think we can take not what we do now, take it up a notch, get more private sector, but still have you in the house. Yeah. And there are perhaps management things. Okay, you don't have to do this if you do, whatever that looks like. But I think enhancing the living experience of the upperclassmen to keep them engaged longer. And then I think having that really nice but private living space. So, they want to come, boxer shorts and t-shirts. My daughter lived in that for the 4 years she was in college. So you really want to come down to the formal living room and that? No, but if you can do those spaces upstairs where they can, you're sitting there studying, somebody comes by, they're going to class, how's your test when they come back? Again, it just creates community and sisterhood.
Yeah, I agree. I like those ideas. And I think that's a very good thought to pay attention to the private sector and figure out how can some of those elements elevate Greek living. And it's a constant challenge from all of our clients to get the upperclassmen to want to stay in the house. So anything we can do as professionals to help that is good.
Well, and I know you've had food vendors on, look how food has changed in the last 10 years, trying to individualize the very different food allergies or whatnot of the different user groups. And so I think the Greek world has a bright and shiny future. I do, but I think we have to, like with men's group, they want a single room. I mean, seriously, they want their girlfriend to spend the night. So we're doing a house right now, and that's not new. That's been around forever. We're doing a house in Auburn, and we're adding 50 beds, and 42 are 1-bedrooms.
Oh, wow.
Group bathrooms, so they still have to come out. And they're small rooms. You're talking like 10 by 14. They're not huge rooms. But then looking at what that looks like for the men, and what does that look like for the women?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to watch as things evolve and continue to mature over time. Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on, Mark, and sharing some of your insights. If folks want to connect with you after listening to this, what's the best way for them to do that? Oh,
a phone is probably the best, and that's my phone number, 405-579-7883, or email, and that's mark@karc-llc.com. Well, I appreciate you creating this avenue. It was fun to visit. You're an easy person to talk with.
Well, likewise. Yes, this whole show is always fun to connect with folks in the industry and just swap stories and kind of share stuff with listeners. So I know that they're going to get a lot from your episode, and I appreciate you coming on.
Well, and one more thing I'd like to address, it's the relationship between architect and interior designer. You and I have worked on several projects, and I know one in Michigan was a very small budget, as was the architectural component of it, but the interiors made a significant piece. And then one we did in Stillwater, where it was a bigger project and you had lots of different rooms that you had to create lots of different identities, right? And that's where we had a large gathering space on the second and third floor. And so I think the relationship between architect and interior person is significant. That, I mean, we're going to design the space and then you're going to come in and adorn it. And I think that collaboration, when we're looking at, okay, I'm thinking we have a coffered ceiling in there. I'm thinking a chair rail, wainscot, wallpaper. What do you think? And so we jive on that. And then it's not like passing. It's not like a relay, but then you take it and run with it with how you finish it out with the light fixtures and the wallpaper and the furnishings and such. So it's always a pleasure to work with you because you're an easy person to work with. And I appreciate that.
Well, you're very kind. And I likewise with you. And yes, it's so important to have that working relationship, because if we're working against each other, the project is not going to go well and the client is not going to succeed. And so we have to be able to work well together on those elements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Liz, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tip. Here's today's house hot take. Accent walls are out, but statement moments are in. Instead of slapping one bright color on a wall and calling it done, create a focal moment. Maybe it's a full-length mirror flanked by sconces, a custom neon sign over a vintage dresser, or a framed quote that means something to your chapter. The goal here is visual impact with a purpose. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.